Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Women's AM. This morning I'm joined by sisters Saima, Nusrat and our special guest Farzana Alam to discuss the ostracised Muslim women. There's still time left to let us know what you think, so please do call the studio and join the discussion. The number to call is on your screens now, or tweet us at Islam Channel, #Women's AM. So Sister Farzana, I'm going to come back to you. We spoke a lot before the break about marriage and the different kind of problems that can arise from marriage, which can lead to women feeling ostracised. But I think another common problem, that we do tend to come across is this issue of childlessness. And when women are able to have children, sometimes, this can lead to feelings of isolation or, maybe feelings of being a failure or something like that. Is this something that you've kind of, come across, in your line of work?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's a lot of pressure when a woman gets married to have children, because that's what her worth is determined by. Yeah. If she can have children and whatever. But sometimes people are just asking not to be malicious about things, not to gossip. They just want to know. But that does put a lot of pressure on. Maybe the woman isn't ready. Maybe it's not even about the woman. Maybe it's about the husband here. Yeah. But no, again, it's a fault within the woman if she can't have children. And there's this expectation not only to have children, but sometimes to have a son.
Yes.
Yeah. We're still living in pre-Islamic times. I don't know again why that's come about, but it's this expectation, this demand, and women do feel very isolated. They feel that sometimes they're worthless, and they shouldn't feel like that way, because Allah gives and Allah takes. Yeah. It's all up to Allah what He does, what He doesn't do. It's a test sometimes.
This is true.
It's a test, and it really shouldn't. We shouldn't feel like, it's the end.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely true. But, subhanAllah, we hear these stories, again and again. I'm so sad when I've heard numerous stories of sisters actually being, divorced, being left because they're unable to have children, and, the husbands can't cope with that. They don't know how to cope with it, so they'd rather just kind of get out. I mean, Sister Saima, this is it's so sad.
Well, first of all, any couple or any person struggling to have children should hold your head up very high, because as a Muslim, your purpose in life is not to become a parent. Your purpose in life is to be a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how you achieve that is by going through, as you said, sister, getting through the test. Yeah, and your test Maybe it could be that you would have been a phenomenal parent, so therefore there would have been no test in that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has carved out a different path for you to get to Jannah, because you would have just aced being a mum. You would have just been the best dad, So you shouldn't feel that there's something lacking in you. Maybe that just would be too easy for you, So the second thing is that Aisha radiallahu anha, she's got the title of mother of the believers, She never had any children. She got that honourable title, and we name our children after her, our daughters after her, because of the other excellent things that she achieved in life, And thirdly, we need to see that, how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala view having children? It is not something to brag about or boast about if you've got a child or if you've got a son. This is something that is a reflection of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maryam alayhi salam, she had a child without a man. That is a reflection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's power. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this in the Quran, that He places life where and when He likes. So people that do have children shouldn't think, oh, I'm better or somehow a better woman because I'm more fertile than her. It's to do with taqwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this all the time. Compete in your taqwa, not compete in how many kids you can bang out.
Goes back to, like, for example, within Surah Taghabun, how it's something that we actually boast about, and it's something quite, but predates even pre-Islamic times. But the issue is here, the issue of qadr that actually we struggle with. The fact that somebody cannot have children, it should not be a benchmark for their purpose in life, just like Saima said. And it's something that does contribute towards depression of women, just because they feel that they're quote-unquote not adequate, just because they don't have children.
I think it's interesting, we kind of keep saying that this shouldn't be the case, and it shouldn't be the case, but unfortunately we do see this, don't we? So, why do you think that we kind of see this?
Because we're not brave enough to break the cycle. Look, we were talking just now about interracial marriages. This is something that we're not brave enough to speak out against. And, often sometimes when somebody finds out that somebody's child married somebody, like an Asian married a black guy, an Asian girl married a black guy, particularly a light-skinned Asian girl married a very dark-skinned Muslim, it's seen that child did something bad, or is a disobedient or ungrateful child. I'd say, look, I'm not encouraging people to go against the wishes of their parents. I'm not encouraging that at all. But we should see that she's actually been brave enough to break the cycle, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, an Arab is no better than a non-Arab, and a black person is no better than a white person. Yeah, this is the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she has broken that cycle. You know, another thing that we should think about within this interracial relationships is what Umar bin Khattab said. We should really reflect on the advice that he gave to one man. In this one particular tribe, they kept marrying within the tribe. First cousin, first cousin, first cousin, which is very prominent in Pakistani culture, yeah? And he actually said to advise that Muslim, your offspring are becoming so thin and weak, marry outside of your tribe, yeah? And this has been scientifically proven, yeah, that this is not good and this is not healthy. So we should look at what the Sahaba, what the pious predecessors have said about this, and essentially what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said.
It's
a good thing to do.
This issue of marrying kind of within your own family, this again in certain cultures as well, we do see this a lot. And you know, there is this thing of just because it's permitted to do it Islamically doesn't mean it's necessarily encouraged. And as you said, we should be looking at the examples of how they dealt with this ruling. You know, another complication that can be added to this issue of marrying within your family, we had a sister call in to remind us of the effect that this has on the family if you divorce. You know, if you marry somebody from within your family and they divorce, that can then split the family. Sister Farzana, have you ever come across anything like this or got any experience of, you know, having kind of helped people in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That is the. I just want to touch upon a point that Sister Saima made about breaking the cycle. I think the younger generation are very afraid to speak out. Just they don't want to disrespect people. But there is a way of doing that. Or there's a way of informing your parents, informing grandparents, in a nice sort of, you know, a really eloquent way. There's no need to get there's no need to get shouty about it or swear at them or whatever. And it is your duty at the end of the day, everyone's duty as a Muslim, to educate people around us and to stop people from doing bad, because we'll be asked about it in the Day of Judgment.
Absolutely. It's always a sensitive issue, isn't it, when it's elders or parents or things like that. But
you just don't want to upset them.
This is it. But, you know, our first duty, as you said, is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's, you know...
That sense of accountability as well comes into it, because if we think of how much these issues affect women that go through these kind of things, because they're ostracised, this has an effect on how they can be able to relate any problems or that level of trust that they would have between themselves and members of the Muslim community. We find that particularly by not allowing our children to marry people of their choosing, as long obviously subject to the Islamic guidelines, they may either end up going against the wishes and marrying someone completely that may not be permissible for us to marry. But we also find that trust is not only lost, that, for example, I think there was one sheikh that was talking about, during his time when he was an imam at a masjid, where one sister, because she was not allowed to marry somebody of a different race or different nationality, she ended up asking him for an abortion, because she said that every time my father asked me, any person that came to my home and asked for my hand and was suitable, my dad always turned them away. That's what she said. And she just developed depression because of that, and it's something that affects Muslim women today.
I think, you know, it's when we think about what the feelings of the parents, these need to be respected. Absolutely, we should, because they've raised us, they looked after us. But something else, I mean, I personally have spoken to a brother who's a black revert, and what he said to me really affected my emotions too. He said, look, the same uncle who embraced me in the mosque when I became a Muslim, hugged me, loved me, you know, invited me to his house and, you know, fed me and everything. And the same uncle who embraced me on Eid Day was the same uncle who denied me the hand of his daughter, who wanted to marry me because I was too dark for her. You have to think about how that makes a person feel.
Absolutely, absolutely, especially for a revert. You know, subhanAllah, coming into Islam, you know, we're supposed to be there for them, and this sends out such a negative message, subhanAllah. We have another caller on the line. We have Sister Nasiba. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Wa alaikum salam.
Welcome to the show. I understand you have a question for the panel?
Yes, I think the question is, why are Muslim women so afraid to ask for help?
That is a fantastic question. Jazakallah khair, sister, for calling in, because I think this is actually the root of the message that we're getting across today, isn't it? We see women ostracised in many different ways, Why are we so afraid to ask for help, Sister Nusrat?
I think the reason as to why we're afraid to ask for help, and this may not always be restricted just to Muslim women, but generally, sometimes we are wary about the judgment that we receive. For example, if we have a problem, we're always interpreting it from the lens of another person, how they would view us. Yeah. That's one thing. Two, if the problem is something that is quite personal and quite contentious, so for example, there are Muslims, there are some people within the Muslim community who may, for example, suffer from HIV or other diseases. They would feel that they were being judged. And another thing is awareness. Sometimes within the khutbahs, within the community leaders, there's no sense of awareness being raised about helping these people that are suffering and being ostracised.
So what can we do as a community then? I think we've mentioned a lot of words around, you know, raising awareness, judgment, this kind of thing. How can we as a community tackle this issue to reduce judgment, to raise awareness?
Support networks are very important as well. We need to build up support networks and from grassroots up. So even if it's, for example, having, I think that when I was at university there was a place where we could just all come in, have a conversation. It's kind of like a sisters gathering as well, that would actually help sisters be able to network and talk to each other on a personal level. If they're feeling upset, they can actually build that bond as well. Yeah. Talking about the issues with a friend or even within a sister actually really does help. Yeah. But also as well, like this kind of individual focus that we do have, trying to always think about the collective is something that will very much help us.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think this issue of, you know, communication and support is something that's key in many of the kind of the endeavours that we face in life. You know, for example, when sisters are kind of looking for a husband, looking for a spouse, you find the pressure is so intense sometimes. Sister Farzana, what advice would you give to a sister who's looking to get married and is kind of feeling the stress of it a little bit?
Yeah, it's just not to worry, because things that happened when Allah plans. All we can do as a community, actually, is perhaps make it easier for the sister to find someone. You know, because sometimes it's that there's that pressure, or people are approaching her, but the parents won't allow it. And that is when the fitna begins, isn't it? Yeah. That's when the troubles begin, when good Muslims approaching the family, you know, suitable prospects, but the family don't accept for whatever reason. Yeah. This puts on extra pressure. Yeah. And you know, there's only so much we can say, we can do, but it's about educating the wider society and about just letting her know that if she needs anyone to do anything for her, we're there for her.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's some fantastic advice, and we've had some really great advice from all of you, but we do have to go for another break right now, but we'll be resuming this discussion in a few minutes, so stay where you are. See you after this. Assalamu alaikum.